Alrighty, so that is a wrap up of session number 1 for Game of Bones, also known as Game of Thrones themed. Um, so I'll just kind of do a sort of a recap of the session. So our characters or players for this session were Artimus Frost, who is a variant human rogue, Cedric Skanler, who is a male human rogue, Dorian Truthrunner, who is a human cleric, and Lyra Vance, who is a human ranger. Uh, the scene for this, it's a Game of Thrones themed. It is set in 275 BC, so quite a while before the TV show. Um, and it's starting in the city of Braavos. Um, so this is during a time when Old Valyria, which at this point in time is just Valyria, was in full power. And Braavos is at that time, the only city in Essos, I believe, that is free from Valyrian rule. A little backstory. So Artimus Frost was from, well, we don't know where he's from. He's a rogue with kind of a shady past. Dorian Truthrunner is from Starfall, which is in Dorne, and he has a terrible secret that he's running from, and he basically caught Artimus stealing from him at some point, and they were gonna execute him, but Dorian said no, don't execute him, let him, be my bodyguard, and basically Artimus has a life debt to Dorian. So they're running. So Dorian's running from his past. Artimus is like his bodyguard, and they get on a ship, kind of in. Let's see, where was it? Got a map here somewhere. Okay. Yeah, so they went through the Stormlands and they got on a ship in Storm's End and took it all the way up to Braavos. And the other two players, we have, let's see, Cedric Skanler and Lyra Vance. So Cedric is actually a native Braavosi and has lived in Braavos all his life. And he kind of is a poor orphan who grew up poor and kind of resorted to stealing stuff to survive. So that's where he's at. And then Lyra Vance is, well, her background's a Heart of Darkness. But basically, she is from the Riverlands in Westeros and comes from kind of a noble house. But she doesn't really like where she's at and kind of runs away in rebellion. And basically, finds a ship and takes it over to Braavos. So a few years ago, before this campaign starts, is when she arrives in Braavos and kind of becomes friends with Cedric. So she's been in Braavos a while. And then Artimus and Dorian show up in a ship to Braavos. Dorian, being the human cleric, is kind of from nobility, so he's got a bunch of cool clothes on, and it's definitely high status. He's a little bit older; he's like in his 50s. And Cedric and Lyra are both fairly young. Artimus is fairly young. So they arrive in the city, and Cedric and Lyra approach them and say, "Hey, we need to," or basically they approach him because they see that they got all this fancy stuff. But basically they needed guides to the city, and they said, "Okay, we'll be your guides." So then they go down the street. They find this guy with a broken leg, and Dorian heals him because he's a cleric, so he uses a healing spell on him. The guy's very thankful. And they continue on the journey because they need to go across a canal. They reach the canal and they find out that a ship has gone across the bridge and actually broken the bridge, and there's a lot of people drowning, and the ship is half in pieces. So Cedrick and Lyra decide to save people. Dorian decides he wants to save people. Artimus says, "No way, I'm sticking here with my stuff." So Dorian jumps in headfirst, and he's kind of old and doesn't really know how to swim too well anymore. So he's just another drowning person at this point. And so Artimus says, "Okay, Cedrick, watch my stuff. I'm gonna go save him." So he saves them with some help, and then Lyra jumps in and saves a bunch of people. Cedrick steals a potion from Artemis's bag when he's busy saving Dorian. And then save a bunch of people, and then Lyra is getting tired. And then Cedrick actually ties a rope around to a rock, jumps in, saves the rest of the people, also grabs a few shiny things in the water, and starts going back to. Oh, and also um, Lyra sees one person go underwater and dives under the water, grabs him, takes him back to shore, and Dorian is actually able to save him with CPR, or an ancient form of CPR. So that was good for that guy. So they're basically done saving people. Everyone is clear from the river, and Cedrick decides to pull himself back in, but the rock that he's tied off to starts kind of wobbling a bit, and Lyra notices it. And so kind of what I'm thinking is as DM is like, well, if they don't fix that, the rock's gonna fall in and it's gonna pull her under. But luckily, they were able to save, get the rock stable. Artemis helped out too, and they pulled her to shore. And then they got reunited, the group of four. So that is basically where we're at currently at the end of session 1, and we'll pick back up next week. We're going to do this Wednesdays at probably 6 or 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It'll actually be 7, but I say 6 because one of our party members it's usually a little bit late, so we tell him 6, but it'll be at 7 p.m. PST next Wednesday. It's the 29th. Will be session number 2. So thank you for joining in. Hope you enjoyed the stream, and if you did like it, go ahead and hit that follow button if you want to, see the next stream. I also play a lot of other games. I play a lot of video games, World of Warcraft, that kind of thing. So if you're interested in any of that, just go ahead and give me a follow. If not, that's cool too. So have a good rest of your day, and hope to see you next week for the Game of Bones. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Goodbye.